Thanks for joining us today on HXGN TV. I'm your host, Neville Judd, and today we're discussing underground mining and Hexagon Mining's focus on integrated solutions beneath the surface. Joining me is Product Manager Carl Brackpool. Carl, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Neville. It's great to be here talking about Hexagon Mining and certainly underground. It's one of my favorite topics.
You bet. So Carl, there's no denying that mines in the future are just going to have to dig deeper to find their deposits. Sum up for me the complexities and the additional hazards of mining underground versus surface mining.
Yeah. It's widely held in the geosciences and in the mining community that we have gone after just about everything that's close to the surface, things that are easy to get to. And now to get to those deposits, we're going to have to go deeper and deeper. The complexities include things like you can't create a multiple pit or multiple pit shell design and go directly at the high value ore grades or deposits. You have to build a development of entries and haulage layers and ability to get the materials out through belt lines and things like that. You have to have a ventilation plan. So all of those shafts and stopes and drifts and those kinds of levels and entries and tunnels need to be developed in advance or worked out in advance long before you get that first grade of ore that has a commodity value that's greater than the cost of extracting. So that alone is a complex problem of going underground. But again, if we need to get to those deposits, before we start talking about undersea mining and off-terrestrial asteroid mining, there's still plenty of material that's underground. Great case in point is one of our largest customers in Chile, Codelco, and their Chuquicamata mine in northern Chile in the Atacama Desert. That pit, I think, just celebrated its 100-year anniversary. It's a very, very valuable pit. It's produced millions of tons of copper, of fine copper, but there's still plenty of what they call superblocks deposits underneath. So over the last 8 years, they've been developing entrances to get to that, and they're going to end of life or sunset the pit operations because in the block caving there will be subsidence. So it makes sense to go in from the underground and go after another 25, 35 years worth of deposits in the underground. The other complexities are things like your energy usage in underground mining. 30% of it can go to ventilation, and anything you can do to modulate the ventilation on demand could have a huge impact on your bottom line, on your operating expense, and therefore your P&L. Communications is going to be one of the biggest problems for underground mining, as our appetite for data, both voice and network data and telemetry data, grows in underground, especially with the IoT Internet of Things sensor revolution. Those choke points mean that the data that needs to be from the working face of the mine to the office and back to the face are going to delay, are going to be stuck in this latency, and we know that time is money. So we're working around that, and Hexagon has always been thinking about what can we do to enable data to be stored and forwarded through, say, MyPlan tablets, humans wearing network nodes, working with communications companies, whether it's fixed wired, leaky feeder, or wireless, to be able to get data to move around a lot better. But until that's solved, you have things of GPS denied environments. And so we're working around the technical aspects of the network and also the security. The more sensors you put in an underground environment, obviously those are points for intrusion, whether they're malicious or accidental. Those are security risks. And the Smart Mine Underground platform will be our IoT platform of the near future, and it's readily available to be able to talk to those sensors and get that data to where it needs to go for analysis.
Now, Hexagon Mining has long been known more for its open pit surface mining technology, but it's long had competencies in its solutions for underground in mine planning and mine design. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Underground mining is not new to Hexagon. Obviously, we have planning tools. Again, the deposit modeling tools, three-dimensional tools and CAD tools, ring design tools for drill patterns, and our stope product, which we had a significant upgrade this year and launched. It's terrific. Creates a much higher confidence, which is, as we talk about, time is money, and confidence in your ability to drill and have less time mucking, and high confidence and high high confidence in your explosives and your advance of the mine to limit the amount of secondary explosions and secondary blasting they need to do to get rid of poorly designed blast. The stoke tool is for creating adits and drifts and ramps that take into consideration the vehicles that we have today and the vehicles we're going to have in the future, which may have tighter turning radiuses, but then they may be automated, fully automated. So you have to be able to plan your underground passages, your roadways, your haul levels to accommodate new types of machinery. And stope is very flexible in that.
Now, there's additional experience on the operations side too with SmartMine UG. Tell us a little bit about SmartMine.
Originally had several options, including Jigsaw Underground, and the SmartMine Underground product was developed in Brazil. And SmartMine Underground is a very robust platform. It's very rich. It's a very elegant code. It's easy to add modules onto that as customers give us problem statements in the underground environment, and we're finding a terrific roadmap to evolve that product, beginning with fleet management systems. So the SmartMine Underground FMS product is truly a great platform, not only for managing the fleet from downtime, optimization and tracking of mobility and where those assets are, as well as the workflow, the tasks that those particular assets and those miners running those machines have to check off on their list. We see that SmartMine is advancing already much further than just the fleet to things like expendables. Right. So small items that can get lost, but they cost money. And your ERP system may know where they last were above ground in the warehouse, or the last time they went down in a lift to go to a particular workshop. But in real time, when the drill needs a new piece of, the jumbo needs a new piece of drill steel, hunting that down means downtime and lost productivity. SmartMine has turned out to be a great module for expanding incrementally based specifically on customer requirements and for functions and features.
Right. You talked about adapting to customer challenges. How important has it been to acknowledge those customer pain points as you're adapting processes for underground?
We have solutions, and again, going back to the differences between surface or pit and underground, sometimes it's just a matter of changing the user interface, or changing some of the labels. So slope stability is synonymous with roof supports. So anything that has to do with rock mechanics, by simply changing the term of looking at geo and rock mechanics or rock engineering about particular faults, particular unstable areas in an underground environment, those require engineering for stability. And in the pit, obviously, when you're doing your pushbacks or looking at your steep walls, we have tools that do that. So we're well versed in both spaces. And in some areas, we have to look at a customer problem statement very uniquely for the underground market and determine whether or not we want to advance SmartMine, we want to look at other players in the business, or we want to look at developing new technologies in that particular arena.
Right. Looking a little bit to the future, what are the underground solutions that excite you most, and where do you see those synergies for future integration between those solutions?
Well, obviously SmartMine Underground is very extensible, and we're looking at that as a long-term platform. But on the planning side, Atlas integration into SmartMine Underground is something customers are asking for, and we're developing along that path. And the idea is that once we add MSSO, Mine Site Schedule Optimizer, we're creating a much a better integrated bundle of software solutions. And we have this great catalog of surface applications that we can bring in and determine whether or not they would apply very well or they would solve a customer problem in the underground environment. And without making those silos with APIs in between, we're fully integrating those together to create complete life of mine solutions.
How important was the MyPlan acquisition with respect to underground solutions?
As I said before, communications is the choke point.
Right.
It's very costly to extend your network to the place where they need it most, which is the working face. And you need data in real time to determine whether or not your sequencing is proper, your task flows or your workflows are being met. And so the ability to get data out in the hands of the miners and in the vehicles, whether it's a jumbo drill or it's an LHD or a mucker, is very, very important. And my plan gives you that ability to push those tablet-based applications out there and update whenever there's ability to talk to a mesh network. And the future of these communications and mobile applications are that every single asset underground, whether it's live, a human, or it's a mobile piece of machinery, acts as a network node. And so as they pass by each other, there's some store and forward, you take some data, that machine gets out near the last crosscut, and maybe there's a network Wi-Fi interface there. It updates, brings it back, and through this well-choreographed ballet of data underground, you can get those updates quicker. A person has finished a task. Drilling went a lot faster. The loaders have sequenced their emulsions and what they're doing for the blast cycle. Waiting for the next shift to do that blast and then running the LHDs.
Right. There's a lot of technology vendors out there. What do you believe Hexagon Mining's advantage to be?
Well, we talk about integration, and there's 3 levels of integration. There's integration with third party, which we would call our competitors' products. It's not uncommon to find a blended environment, whether that's surface or underground. You're going to have other vendors providing those piece parts because there's been an investment in that. Hexagon believes that being able to ingest data from other people, analyze it, and report it back, regardless of the data source, whether it's ours, of course we would love our solution, but that's going to be the differentiator as opposed to highly proprietary closed architectures, which are what many vendors do just to stay in business. Intellectual property, closed data. We think that data is data.
Yeah. So finally, Hexagon Mining talks about a life of mine vision. Sum up for me where this integration beneath the surface fits into that vision. Where do these solutions fit in?
We think that underground is an untapped market. The vendors that are out there right now are very specific, whether it's a ventilation company that just develops the ventilation simulation plans, or a process automation company, or a vehicle automation company. Since we look at the entire life of mine, and from the original geosciences and permitting all the way through to a responsible mine closure and reclamation, there are great areas that are untapped, especially on the mill side. And since the mill takes its feed and has a capacity based on all of the sequencing ahead of it, you want to make sure that each portion of the mine cycle is running at its optimal amount. And Hexagon sees all of those. We also have access to Hexagon Technology Center over in Europe, which is constantly looking at evolving technologies like artificial intelligence, big data analytics, ensemble algorithms, disparate data. They're looking obviously at full autonomous underground, which is going to be very important in what we call the mine of the future. Right. Rio Tinto obviously coined that phrase. And we're in that transition period between fully manual and fully autonomous, where humans have to work in very close proximity to machines that are becoming more and more independent. So our safety products like vehicle intervention systems. Fatigue is a problem in surface and also a problem underground. So a fatigue monitoring system absolutely can be repurposed underground. All of those pieces, from even the environmental impact assessments and environmental impact reporting that's required to get your permit for underground, we don't want to be liable for that particular assessment, but that data should be readily available throughout the entire life of mine so that they can make real-time actions. They can change their dewatering, they can change their paste tailings plan or strategy in a particular day. And as opposed to sending that back up to the surface, going to the mine office, working on it in a spreadsheet.
Carl, thanks so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Neville.
We'd like to thank our guest, Carl Brackpool, for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about Hexagon Mining's underground solutions, visit hexagonmining.com. And to watch additional episodes of HXGN TV, visit hxgntv.com. Thanks for tuning in.